Recording in progress.
So, without further ado, I'm going to get started. So our topic is leading disruptive change. You already got introduced to me. So it's always good to lay down what is our learning objectives, because we hope to basically get this kind of tackled during the day, and hopefully when you depart afterwards, you'll be able to tackle the kinds of things that are covered here. So the first thing we want to be all aware is that we need to understand that pace of change outside the organization must be met with pace of change inside the organization. That's something we take for granted, but we often don't pay explicit attention to it. It's very important to do that. Because at the end of the day, that's one of the things that more or less creates problems for us. The other thing is we need to understand that change inside the organization must be managed. Maybe it's happening, but are we managing it? Third main objective is if we want to do change management, we must have a systematic approach. We can have an ad hoc approach, but ad hoc approach is different from systematic. And then, from our point of view, this is what I spend most of the day on. A systematic approach to change management requires three things that are mutually reinforcing each other based on the switch framework change model. It's my favorite. It's easy to understand, but also it tackles the things that perhaps we don't necessarily ourselves can arrive at. And also, because it's simple, don't be deceived that change is easy, change is difficult, but this makes doing change easier because once you understand it. What is our specific learning objective? Now we're going to go a little deeper than the three parts of change management is that you need to specify your objectives for the team, for the organization, for business. Very mundane. Really, of course we are, but you will see that by being clear and narrow, it facilitates change. Second, you must be motivating the change. Again, something we take for granted. But what does that mean in practice? And finally, you need to create a supportive, enabling, facilitating environment for change. Now, the other things that go hand in hand is that most organizations don't necessarily have a sense of urgency. In other words, things are happening, but it's not happening at the pace. Remember the first point I made about pace. You need to have a sense of urgency. Maybe you as a manager have a sense of urgency, but the people under you have the same sense of urgency. Second point is that we often encounter resistance. And if that's the case, then we have to have a way of tackling resistance. So urgency and tackling resistance go hand in hand with the three parts. And we also will learn a way of trying to develop applications of this by walking through these, what I call bite-sized, small pieces applications. So that's more or less our agenda for the day. Any questions before I move forward? So you have covered so far organizational culture, leadership, emotional intelligence. You also have covered human resource and human capital management, and you will be covering business analytics and AI and transformation in decentralized finance. So what is the role of this module? This module is, think of it as an enabler of the That's what we're going to more or less expect you to see them. Yeah, if I want to implement some of the things that I learned in leadership and emotional intelligence and for HR and for coming, I need to have these things that I need to be aware of in order to do that. So in a way, what this does, you can mobilize cultural change in your resources through things we're going to learn, and we're going to be able to take as an analytics, AI, and DeFi, digital transformation tool. So how do we do this? By giving you this toolkit. I call it a toolkit. I'm an engineer undergraduate, so I remember, although I sold out and I got to management and business, I feel like engineer colleagues tell me that you sold out, you went to business. Proudly, because actually change management and the business aspects, the soft things actually make the hard things happen. So this is a toolkit approach. I want to stress this toolkit concept. You know, you get a toolkit, you can do things with, you can fix problems. So this is our toolkit that we're going to focus on. I always like to emphasize that, why should I worry about learning a toolkit? Because a toolkit lasts through many applications, as opposed to just trying to solve one problem at a time. And therefore, I'm always fond of the saying that says, give a man, a fish, and you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So the same way the toolkit is, in a way, what it gives you this ability to handle change on an ongoing basis rather than one time. Our agenda for the day is that in the more or less in the morning, we tackle the justification, introduction to change, and our philosophy approach, and then we'll move into covering the two parts of the model, which is to do with change management, with clarifying and communicating the goal of the change, and finally motivate. Second part, motivating. And in the afternoon, we focus on the third part, which is changing the situation for the environment, and then also urgency and change, and then we do wrap. So that's our agenda. Any questions? Comments? I have to get you more involved. So let's go around and ask questions. But before we do that, these days we are all involved in CBK. Yes? Have you guys tried ChatGPT? Anybody has tried ChatGPT? No? Have you heard of it? Everybody in the news, right? You must have heard of it. Who hasn't heard of it? You haven't heard of ChatGPT? ChatGPT is the new AI application. It more or less looks and works like Google search, but it's much more extensive in terms of its ability, right? And then these days, every time you open a newspaper, look at the TV news, there is some news about what's happening. For instance, Microsoft just invested $10 billion in the parent company of ChatGPT, and they're going to roll out a version of ChatGPT with Bing, which is their own search. So guess what Bijan went to ChatGPT and says, write a joke on change management in banks. Like in the movie. What do you think it did that? This is AI, right? No more. No more banks. Well, it's a joke. Yes. Close. Not exactly. Yes. What do you think? Probably it says, well, like Azad said, no banks. Could say what has changed in is really change and banks are not the same, or they're opposite each other, things like that. So let's see what it said. This is ChatGPT, so I'm not checking this. Why? So this is a joke. Why did the banker refuse to give a penny in change to his customers? And they had, because we wanted to make sure the change was fully approved by the change management committee first. So that's a joke that the AI was. I have no influence. But so if this is the era we live in, like AI is going to be everywhere. It's already penetrating everything we do. So the context of what we're trying to do is that this is happening around us. So our task is to understand it and try the best we can do to manage it. Now, without further ado, I would like to before showing you the video, I would like to go around and ask you to state your name and position so I know you a little bit more since you learned a lot about me. I'd like to hear about you. Is that possible? Let's not take more than like 10 seconds. So, what is your name and position? CBK. Where do we start? We'll start with Azad. Great. Fantastic. Go ahead. Azad. Very nice. Great. Very good. I know these two. Support me always. Everybody knows you, Gary. You want to introduce yourself? Good. Very good. Okay, so I want to show this video to just get a sense of where we're going. Let me. If you look around, it's everywhere. Change can at times feel overwhelming. It can feel as if you can't deal with it well. But in reality, if you look carefully at some organizations, some corporations, some healthcare systems, you see there are alternative ways of handling it that are smart, that are challenging, and that are, believe it or not, fun. I'm John Cowler. For over 20 years now, as a faculty member at Harvard, I've been studying change. I've learned that in over 70% of the cases where organizations needed to change, they either didn't try, they tried and failed, or they tried and succeeded, but at a level that was far less
in their aspirations. Also, that some people found a remarkably simple formula, simple in light of complexities involved, that works remarkably. I'm standing right now behind MIT. The Institute goes along the Charles River, right across Boston, on the side. It's really quite interesting, interactive. We go a library, but when I first arrived here in 1964, this is kind of what the backside looked like.
For your information, when I was at MIT, these are gray hair. It was like this, not the way it is now.
Buildings that look like they were cheap. You got empty parking lots, weeds, chain link fences, and these incredible trailers that were left over from World War II. It must have drawn up very quickly to do research as part of the war. For the next 20 years, trailers went away, and you started to see more projects. First over in Kendall Square, and then behind, and right over here where I'm standing, a little in front of me. And it began to look a little bit more like a modern for the next 20 years. Things began to change rapidly. All of a sudden, it didn't look like this. It looked more like this. Building after building has been put up that looks, to our taste, modern, taller, more exciting, more daring. Building after building, all the way down the street from the east end to the west end of MIT. We even got a Gary building, which, depending upon the case, is either the product of a brilliant 21st century mind or something that was designed by a deeply creative person. Now, I tell you this because the fundamental pattern behind, which is a world moving, let us say, 20 miles an hour for the first 2 decades after World War II, and speeding up to 40 miles an hour for a few decades, measuring at 80 and 100. That fundamental pattern is found everywhere, not just education, not just technical education, throughout industries, across continents. And that kind of switch upward is not going to change anytime in the near future. Notion that change is always with us, or change can fluctuate. Maybe that's true over a millennium, but in our lifetime, we think again 1, 2, 5 years, we're on this kind of curve, and it has huge implications. Because if you get the challenge of change right, the opportunities are unbelievable.
So I want to get a little bit of discussion going about this notion of change. So you saw the last bit about the highway. What did it say? What did it say? Remember? He said the point is the acceleration of change. I think, I don't know, some of you have kids. I feel like if you compare yourself and your life to the life of your kids, I think the amount of change you're experiencing in their life, I think I experienced, you know, in the more my life so far I've had, which is like 6 decades, I'm 60 plus, right? They are experiencing in like 10 years. So one of the things we want to aware is what? The acceleration. You agree with that? Okay, so let's get opinions on the people. I want 1 sentence impressions of what does this mean for you and for the bank. Acceleration of the pace of change. Let's start from the other side now. Ahmed would be last. We can't give you always the first because I know you think you have lost them, right? Yes? The speed of change. Okay. Go ahead. Acceptance of change. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
So acceleration and change could be made in any shape or form, but it has to be in an accelerated format. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I want your,
Accelerated.
in other words, what do you think this means for you? Or for the bank, or for you? Just what are you talking about?
I think quality.
Quality of change? Quantity, quality, and speed. Okay. I just others. Can you elaborate a little? You mean changing what? Changing technology, changing organization, changing human capital. That's what you mean? Okay. So types of change, where it's happening. For instance, in my recruitment, I have to worry about now recruiting millennials or Gen Z. These are the, from Gen X, Gen Z, and then we have millennials at the beginning. So I'm a boomer, I'm a giver, and these personas make a difference. Yes. That's
Acceptance, change, and speed change.
Okay, we have two of these now. Actually, I would like to just add the two. Yes. Agency, I like it. Yes. Agility. Yes. Anybody else? I like it. Who hasn't spoken? Yes, who else? It's okay. You can still say it. All I'm saying is that since the pace of change is accelerating, what comes to your mind, the bank, your unit, otherwise, that one sentence that characterizes, if you think about acceleration of pace of change. Okay. Well, everybody? Yes? I think you're because you are going to have to now speak three times.
I think keeping up with the acceleration of change.
Picking up?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, that picking up with pace of change inside.
Yes.
Great. So, what basically this tells us is that inevitable that change is happening, but also for us now more and more thinking about its speed brings to mind things like acceptance, quantity, quality, types of change. Is it, for instance, is it change that comes in episodes? Is it happening all the time? How urgent is it? How agile are we to deal with it? And then resistance always comes up, always. Now, adaptability, understanding obstacles, picking up the pace of change. What this note says is that often we know things changing, we know it's happening, but our ability to deal with the change always is hampered, reduced by the fact that we don't necessarily have a good model of change. Model, always models are perfect. What do we mean by model? Basically, fancy word for saying, what should I do next? Right? So, for instance, you know that rockets are designed to go to space, at least at the beginning, by having a model of gravity. If you can create enough lift, right, and overcome gravity, you can lift the rocket. We need to have a similar theory of change for us, and that should be our model. But then we also have to start with recognizing where we are in our. So, in light of that, what I would like to spice up by asking questions. And my first question is, let's do a vote. My organization unit or my organization, whichever one you like, is aware of critical changes in the market and in the consumer and the regulated environment. I want to show here with either agree or disagree. First, we're going to do one. Who agrees with that? Who disagrees? Okay, zero. A couple of people did not vote. That means you are in a political life, you like to not really need people, so you like not to vote, right?
Physical changes in the market, there is something out of your hands which you cannot be aware of.
Right.
It's just sudden. So that's why it's kind of in the middle.
But the point is, are we aware? I think we are aware.
Yes.
So I think you agree that most of us are aware. So that's what I want to see. This is interesting always. Kind of pleased with that. So let's say this is core one. Okay. Point two asks, my organization is well equipped to tackle changes needed to market and consumer related. So now, are what's your perception of this? So on the hands of those that didn't agree, hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This is agree. Who disagrees? 1, 2, 3, 3. Okay. The rest of you have clearly politics, right? Let's not vote yes or no. I keep my option. Never mind. The whole point is, every time I ask this question, there is always this discrepancy in perception of what's happening in the organization. Most of you have this perception, which probably is accurate, that most of the organization is aware of what's going on. But there is always this converts into this more or less very different perception of our being able to act. That's where we need to have a model, have an approach, systematic approach to change management precisely because of this. Okay, so how many of you have watched or heard of Wizard of Oz? Okay, don't have to hold it. Not required, but this kind of helps you. I both read the book in my English course, but also I watched the movie several times. I'm going to ask you, when you read this, is that ready? Maybe 2 minutes, I would like to look at that. But basically, these are about the stories about this. You know, Dorothy is in Kansas, and there's a cycle on pets, and Dorothy's house is lifted, right? And then Dorothy comes back to the land of Oz, right? And the famous line in this movie, in the story is, Pluto, we are running Kansas again. The first thing, I have your attention that I have to do. So, and then what happens is that there's this contrast between the version of where Dorothy was in Kansas, black and white, this new version of reality where it's technicolor and it's a world of Oz. Now, why am I bringing this up in the context of change management? You will see why. So, what I'd like you to do, just quickly make the earth of this, it's like, let's like reading. And then I want to discuss the 2 questions at the end among yourselves, and then we're going to discuss it. Because this is what I want us to contextualize what we're going to do for the rest of the day. So I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to read it, and then another 10 minutes to discuss the questions. Is that good? Are we good? Yalla. Tell us. First question.
Or otherwise, we can adapt to the now. Like, for example, when the technology changes, Nokia was that time when it was on the peak. And now they use BlackBerry instead of Nokia because BlackBerry had a so Nokia lost their opportunity because they did not understand and adapt to new environment.
Very good. Very good.
But Nokia did actually adapt. It left in just recently. They rebranded their name and they went into another subsection of telecom. So they have accepted that eventually. They learned that for right?
So what we want to connect these 2 points is that there is obviously the pace of adaptation is key. This is what we want to understand. In other words, we always refer to this Kodak. Kodak was one of the largest companies in the world, and Kodak and film, actually pictures. Kodak and pictures are one and the same. Unfortunately, Kodak is no more. So now we could adapt it, but the point is the pace, not so.
No, same thing. It is adapt to the technology advancements and sort of watching online, Netflix, beat them with.
So exactly. So what I want you to kind of see this as there is a tendency for all of us, although we see things happening around us. This is basically from a company point of view as well. Is that let's say we are not in Kansas anymore? Equivalent is that we are not in the color film era anymore, right? We are not in the non-digital banking era anymore. We are not in digital search anymore, right? Search used to be what? Yellow pages. That was search. You open Yellow pages, you search. Now, you go to your computer, you Google. Or first, my wife tells me that don't ask Google, ask me. Right? Actually, she has a t-shirt she gave me. She says, don't ask Google, ask your wife. Because you know your wife wants to go away. So, Minister Material. So, and Mr. Finance. So, This, for us, is very important to realize. And then what is interesting is that we are aware of it, just like we said, but that awareness does not translate necessarily into action. But what I like about the movie is also says about other things. That's where I would put question two and say that if we want change to succeed, and if we are being hit by the cycle in the banking industry, which is digital transformation and basically the whole digital disruption is coming. So what we want to think of this is what, and I want to go back to some of the pictures. If you ever watch the movie, by the way, I have the movie also, I can show it to you, but clips, but I always like to go back to this, is that this is an interesting way of looking at it. We know when the banking world is being transformed, we need new partners. We need new ways of thinking our channels. We need new relationships. So the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion all represent new things we have to do in order to get to this land of Oz. But just think, what do you think if you were to look back that at your own organization unit, would you have done change differently 10 years ago than when you're doing now? Because your mindset is changed, right? What would you have done different? I know, for instance, when we started doing executive MBA, Ahmed was one of our early graduates. Executive MBA was really hard for us. We were not used to getting executives in university and basically giving them a product. Remember, if you make a soap, solid piece of soap, then you kind of have changing marketing, and then you're not having liquid soap. Liquid soap cannot be used the same way. You need a dispenser, right? And then you need to make sure what the soap has suspension agent. Why? Otherwise, it solidifies and goes to the bottom, and you can never press the thing. So you need to add new things, right? You need to make a dispenser. Should you buy a dispenser, or should you make it yourself? Because now it's part of distributing the soap, right? And then not only that, it turns out the quality of the spring in the dispenser impacts whether the client, the user, is going to be able to get the soap out. Not only that, if the quality of the nozzle is bad, is what suddenly you press it and the soap is everywhere in the bathroom as opposed to on your hand. So all of these things matter. If we don't recognize this is not business as usual, the EMBA is like the dispenser soap. The digital banking is like the dispenser soap. What would you have done differently? Remember any kind of change you've been engaged in the past decade that you would have done differently if you think about it as not business as usual? Yes.
Honestly, sometimes I think like
Interesting. So what you're saying is that sometimes you just have to wait for the change to kind of create an environment. But would it be sometimes too late to do it? Okay. So what you are taught, right? You see what you said yourself. So it's like we are caught in this situation where, oh, it's too early, not everybody's using it. And then when we get in it, it's like a red ocean and everybody's. And we don't slow down. That's exactly the point. Anything else of your mind? Yeah.
One of the most recent or latest students in most organizations are innovation partners.
Yes.
I think this was more implemented way before back then. We would have been able to adapt to any changes in the assets of the market.
Good point. So now, what that means also is that, first of all, there's a question of timing, right? But also it's a question of, in a way, late is better than nothing, right? So why? Because now, still what's interesting is that the momentum of previous processes and the fact that our previous business model has been good is carrying us forward. But I think you also acknowledge that we don't move now, or at least so. The cyclone will lift us to oblivion and go down. So you gotta act with urgency, and you gotta recognize that, if you want to be in the world of technical or digital transformation of banking, you need to act and think different. So what I like to draw your attention to this particular is that in the same way the approach of managing this to be present here is not really technology itself. This is the point of today. It is about how companies can respond to this topic. So what we want to be clear today, we need a method for managing change, because the change could be technological in the computer world, but it could be economic, a recession. It could be a Ukraine war. It could be the Gulf War that happened in Kuwait. These are all disruptions. So our way of getting ahead of it is to develop a way to manage the change regardless of the kind of disruption. I think we're ready to move forward. Any questions, comments before we proceed? Now we're going to introduce the lessons and also the story. Let's see. So my son is a Barcelona fan, and he's been crying for the past 6 years. Because Barcelona has really deteriorated. He blames it on the president who was changed last year, and now new president came in. But one of the things you want to think about is that where are we? Never change a winning team, or always change a winning team. Which one is it? And that's exactly what he said. You need to work. So we actually, the message of this Wizard of Oz is this is Sony in 1985. This technology was everywhere, as you can see. I mean, if you were told, I don't know, most of you are probably too young to remember, right? I'm showing my age. You're saying, what is that? Sony Walkman was everywhere. Digital disruption happened to Sony. This is what digital disruption is. And then, of course, we have the new digital disruption, which is Spotify and Apple. Of course, Sony is nowhere to be seen when iPod happened. Not even close. They didn't even come with a version of their own. So this is to be avoided. So our goal is we can be dealing with management change, especially disruptive change. How do we do that? By employing what we call a behavioral approach to solving problems. Behavioral approach means that we need to employ all we know in the science of human behavior, and we need to use it to my favorite story from my days in Boston is that there is this tower in Boston. At the time, it was the tallest tower in the 1960s. And they had this problem. People were complaining that the elevators were slow. People wanted to go to the 42nd floor, it was 42 stories at the time in 1960. 42 stories was high. Of course, nowadays that's not good. So they brought in engineers, they went to the medical company, and they asked them, how do we solve this problem? And they spent 6 months back and forth. And they came and said, well, we have a solution. We can improve the speed by employing various techniques. But we can only improve the speed by 3 to 5%. And we don't think that's going to really solve the problem in the wait time. Because 3 to 5% of, 2 to 3 million people start, we know if you wait for an elevator more than 30 seconds, you start fidgeting, right? Have you noticed? If you're in front of the elevator, you start moving around after 30 seconds. So why is it not allowed? Okay. They brought in human behavior scientists. They asked them, how do we solve this problem? So they added this. After 1 week, they came back and said, don't worry about improving the speed of the pulling and the elevators. They put mirrors. They said, we suggest you put mirrors around the elevators and inside the elevator. Wow. Human beings, always when they start pressing the button and they see mirrors, they're always start looking at themselves and at others. And they start adjusting their attire, they look down, right? Especially you should put mirrors that make you feel look thin because it's better. Right? I've always enjoyed when I look in hotels, especially so wow, I'm 10 kilos lighter, right? Because they have mirrors that make you look. What do you think happens after they listen to this and they saw the mirror? Complaints are down by 90%. This is where our lesson should be. Not solutions that are technical will not be the answer, solutions that are behavioral may be the answer. We need to take today's insights from that perspective. This is actually the essence of this book that I gave you the first chapter to read. By the way, we are asked by CBK Learning and Development Department and the management to more or less recommend things that you can have at your disposal even before and after you attend our modules. And this book is a very good book if you're interested in change management. And I recommend it in I passed the information on to our staff that it will be very good for you if you want to look. I only ask you to read one chapter, it's an introductory chapter. It's very useful. Why? It's a good summary. But if you want to read the rest, it's a very easy read and you will enjoy it because it's like a lot of stories. And a lot of what I have to say comes from this, but of course I have tweaked it. Bottom line, this book uses the behavioral approach and says we can more or less make change. Lessons of when change works is because it follows a pattern. The pattern is just like the elevator. Is that do you have clear direction? Do you have motivation? And is the environment support? If you kind of have that, then more or less you can move on and do this. How are we doing for time, Anna? We good? Okay, good. So let's just start this, and then maybe let's see however we can get in the first part. So the first part of this is that we want to get the perspective clarified for you. Where is the equivalent of the mirror concept coming? If you want to convince people to change, for instance, to adopt a new computer system, why is it working? You want to them to adopt. You can think about the rationale for this, because you can say this program has a lot of features that will help you save time. Is that going to be enough to convince you to move to the new software? Perhaps, perhaps not. What you need to recognize that human beings have a rational side and an emotional side. Not saying it's only unusual, most of them. But what you should know, more important, is that think of the rational self as a human being, and think of the emotional, somebody who does execution. This is a thinking part. As the first thing you notice when you look at this is the size of the human being compared to them, which is bigger. Is it a little bit? More like 10 times, 20 times. If you compare the weight, more. 100 kilograms, this is 2-3 tons. Okay. I think that gives you some ideas about what we are thinking about. So let's say somebody puts chocolate chip cookies in front of me. Our household loves chocolate chip cookies. My wife makes a lot of them. And of course, you can never keep enough around because you can't find them, because the moment they're made, they're gone. So now the point is that my doctor tells me my cholesterol is high, my triglyceride is high, my uric acid is high, and therefore me, I'm still watching. But my emotional self can control the rational self. I should have known. Which one do I listen to? I should, of course, I don't need it. So, what we want to be clear is that recognizing these two parts is very important. If you are not clear about what this means for change, you end up always erring on the side of this, and even perhaps most often you're not even clear about this, but often we forget this part. And then these two more or less undermine, torpedoes, create problems for a change. So, what we want to walk through the rest of the day is that we need to look at the rational side of change. At the same time, there is emotional side of change, but there is also the fact that we need to create a supportive environment. These are the three parts that we're going to go to. I'm going to show you the video, and then I think that should be our starting point. The video is fun because I think most of you, at least some of you, will relate to it. So this is the author of the book, one of the authors of the book, this Dan. See what he said.
inspire you this afternoon with some thoughts on change. And when my brother and I began to research a book on change, we talked to a lot of different people about their experience with change. And I want to share with you the number one thing that we heard back from them. It was this quote right here. Change is hard. People resist change. People hate change. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And there's a common sense read to that, isn't there? And certainly in our lives, we've all struggled with some flavor of change. But what I want to point out is that this can't possibly be the whole story. And my proof is in these pictures. These young people you see here are about to work on life changes. And yet you want to notice something unusual about these photos. They're smiling. Why are they smiling? Don't they know they're supposed to hate change? Don't they know they're supposed to resist change? And yet here is concrete evidence that there are some changes in life that we accept joyfully. And it's not just getting married, of course. What about technology? This posture didn't exist 5 years ago. And now your teenagers have brought it into your home. You're starting to look like them. I saw a lot of Blackberries and iPhones out there, and I suspect there's no one here that's yearning for a tech in this era.
You remember this?
So things when it comes to technology, we're open to change. What about fashion? We update what we wear with the seasons, with the times, and I want to go on record as saying, thank goodness that we are open to change when it comes to fashion. Check out the guy in the yellow pants there. What if that navel cut up will come back in a minute? God help us all. We haven't even talked about the biggest change of them all. This is a change that I suspect fully half or 2/3 of this crowd is signing up for. You have no one but yourself to blame this change, and that is kids. Little guy looks a little bit suspicious about the whole thing. Let's be honest, I know you're thinking about changes in practice, you're thinking about changes to take it home. But boy, oh boy, the amount of change that you're thinking about at work is dwarfed by the amount of change that comes with having kids. You know, no matter how bad things get involved, you're never going to be called upon to work with patients, right? And yet, millions of people around the world every week volunteer for this change. And by the way, even when this little guy grows up, it doesn't get a whole lot easier to be a parent, right? So it's not true that people always resist change. It's not true that change is always hard. But let's not be naive either. We all know that there are times when change is incredibly difficult. And so the real question here is, why is it that sometimes change comes relatively easily? And why is it that sometimes change is excruciating? And that was the mystery that led my brother Chip and I to write this book called Switch. And in this book,
Okay, so I wanted to kind of begin our discussion at the 5 o'clock. And it's nice to see this because, again, we want to kind of learn from these things that we see that, we have this impression of change that, but then there are these, at least mentally you think, should I have kids or not? Of course, your wife tells you, yes, you should. And you will. So the point is, I'm saying it's difficult, at least from a perceptual level, but you embrace it. So we need to kind of learn from this, the fact that why do we embrace some changes and not others? And how can we learn the lessons? So I'm going to stop and have our break now, and then we come back at 10 minutes past, right?